3, 2, 1, fire.
Electronic warfare is a term that has been entering the public consciousness more and more recently as the forces involved in the Russo-Ukrainian War make use of cyberattacks to cripple the other side's infrastructure. In reality, such concepts have been around since the Cold War, and the electronic side of war is fought by real hardware, fighter jets. And that's where the EA-6B Prowler comes in, a monster so fast, nothing can catch it. The Prowler and the Growler. The EA-6B Prowler is a 4-seat twin-engine electronic warfare aircraft based on the A-6 Intruder airframe. It might disable, deceive, or deny a wide range of military electronic systems, including radars and communications. Prowlers assisted U.S. Air Forces in reducing risk and improving situational awareness. They were used for a variety of defense operations, from routine evacuations to jamming services during large-scale confrontations. After long years of service in Vietnam, Panama, Iraq, and Afghanistan, it was time for a new solution. Combat aircraft technology had advanced leaps and bounds, and the U.S. Navy in particular wanted a new electronic warfare jet based on a fighter platform. They turned to the FA-18 Hornet, the heavily armed strike fighter for the U.S. Navy that was just starting to enter service to replace the old but still respected F-14 Tomcat. On November 15, 2001, Boeing accomplished the first flying demonstration of the E-18 Airborne Electronic Attack Concept aircraft, a FA-18F F-1 equipped with the ALQ-99 electronic warfare system. When the test ran successfully, the U.S. Navy awarded Boeing a development contract for the EA-18 in December 2003. Thus began the production the very next year. The main airframe subcontractor, Northrop Grumman, was also brought in to supply the center and aft fuselages, as well as the main electronic warfare system. On October 22, 2004, the first EA-18G test aircraft went into production. The first test aircraft, designated EA-1, was unveiled on August 3, 2006, and flew for the first time on August 15, 2006 in St. Louis. It was then transferred to Naval Air Station, Patuxent River, Maryland on September 22, 2006. The U.S. Navy has placed an order for 57 aircraft to replace its then-current EA-6B Prowler, and subsequently the U.S. Department of Defense approved the EA-18G program for low-rate production in 2007. When asked why the FA-18 was chosen as the base, General James Cartwright told the U.S. Senate Committee on Armed Services that the decision was made to keep the FA-18 production line going because warfighting commanders needed more aerial electronic warfare capability, which only the EA-18G could provide. This brings us to the nitty-gritty details of its design and performance. Technical specs. Because the Growler and the FA-18EF Super Hornet share airframes and engines, their flight performance is similar. This feature allows the Growler to undertake escort jamming as well as the typical standoff jamming mission. The former involves jamming with deep strikes, while the latter typically involves jamming from a far distance. Because the Growler shares the airframe with the conventional Super Hornet, it has a high level of parts interchangeability. For simplicity of maintenance, about 90%. Performance is nearly identical, with a top speed of Mach 1.6, a maximum rate of climb of 228 meters a second, and a service ceiling of about 50,000 feet. The latter is especially ideal for high-risk electronic warfare missions. Growlers can also accompany FA-18s during the whole attack operation. This was critical because the FA-18's prime strength is its heavily armed profile, which allows the aircraft to serve as a capable ground attack and aerial combat platform. Anything is conceivable when such versatility is combined with the convenience of global aircraft carrier transportation. A single EA-18G can have up to 5 ALQ-99 jammer pods installed, as well as 2 AIM-120, AMRAAM, or AGM-88 HARM missiles. The AIM-120 missiles are designed to defend against aerial aggressors, whereas the AGM-88 missiles are anti-radiation missiles that target and destroy radar sites. The INCAN's interference cancellation system, which is not available on the EA-6B, was to allow voice communication while jamming enemy communications. Coordination and survivability are further enhanced by such a significant communications advantage. 3 Growlers linked together can develop real-time targeting tracks for hostile radio frequency sources. The EW pods may be used to correctly pinpoint signal sources using quicker data transfers. When one of the 3 planes receives a signal from a source, such as a cell phone, the other 2 can listen for the same signal. and all three can triangulate the location in a very limited region by measuring the time it takes for transmissions to travel from the source to each plane. To put it another way, extreme precision. Because of such high performance figures, the Growler was the first platform for the next generation jammer, which uses active electronically scanned array technology to target jamming power exactly where it is needed due to its excellent performance. The F-35 was supposed to get the NGJ, but the US Navy, however, chose in May 2012 to focus NGJ integration on the EA-18G, which was initially anticipated to enter service in 2020 and defer work on the F-35. The Royal Australian Air Force decided to add the Raytheon ATFLIR pod to their order of 12 Growler aircraft following U.S. Navy flights in Operation Odyssey Dawn during the 2011 Libyan Revolution and the subsequent. When the radar and radar detectors on the Navy EA-18Gs found potential targets, they sent the information to strike fighters, FA-18s, or any other suitable fighter or attack aircraft via data links in a successful test. In order to considerably strengthen the plane's self-defense against aerial threats, Australian EA-18Gs were also armed with AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles. Deployment history and replacement. On June 3, 2008, the Squadron VAQ-129 Vikings at NAS Whibley Island formally accepted the first Growler for fleet use. They were the first to consider the Growler to be operationally effective and appropriate for use. The baptism of fire for the Growler eventually came during the aforementioned deployment in the 2011 Libyan Revolution. 5 EA-18Gs were redeployed from Iraq to Libya to support operations. It's a sense of mission accomplishment and great to know that the aircraft performed so well, said Commander Jeff Craig, commanding officer of FAQ-132 Scorpions. It's a very reliable aircraft, very capable, but nothing happens on deployment without the support of our people. They flew over 700 missions and amassed over 3,000 hours of airtime during their deployment, all while maintaining a 100% sortie completion rate. 5 aircraft, 10 crews, and 190 enlisted personnel were used to accomplish this. Of course, the officer's deck had nothing but praise. It's a sense of mission accomplishment and great to know that the aircraft performed so well, said Commander Jeff Craig, commanding officer of VAQ-132. Critical roles in jamming and communication scrambling played by the Growlers were critical in allowing airstrikes to go on unhindered as Super Hornets stopped the thundering advancing of forces loyal to then-dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Those forces were heavily armed and in possession of highly lethal anti-air defenses. During flight operations, because the EA-18G Growler and the EA-6B Prowler sound so similar, the Navy wisely began using Grizzly right from Operation Odyssey Dawn as the EA-18's radio name instead to avoid any confusion. Eventually, the US Navy was able to enforce the UN-mandated no-fly zone over Libya with no losses. The way it came together, the synchronicity of operations, the involvement and coordination among the different participants, it all went quite well, Navy Admiral Gary Roughead said. The other major user of the EA-18G is the Royal Australian Air Force, as previously mentioned. Defense Minister Joel Fitzgibbon said on February 27, 2009, that 12 of the 24 Super Hornets on order would be wired on the assembly line for future conversion to EA-18Gs. $35 million would be spent on additional wiring. On August 23, 2012, the Australian government stated that 12 RAAF Super Hornets would be equipped with Growler capability at the cost of $1.5 billion, making the Royal Australian Air Force the only military outside of the United States to use the Growler's electronic jamming technology. The aircraft was slated to be flown by No. 6 Squadron RAAF, and on July 7, 2017, the RAAF delivered the last of the 12 EA-18G Growlers to RAAF base Amberley, where No. 6 Squadron RAAF is based. Australia's experience with the Growler, however, was somewhat checkered. Following an engine fire in January 2018, one of the Australian EA-18Gs was written off, leaving the force with 11 of the type. During Exercise Red Flag 2018, an Australian EA-18G caught fire after an unsuccessful takeoff at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada on January 29th. The crew was able to depart the plane on the ground safely. According to an inquiry, the high-pressure compressor on one engine had split into 3 big pieces, severely damaging the bottom airframe, right tail fin, and the other engine. On August 15th, the aircraft was written off and the Australian government was determined to seek compensation for the $125 million aircraft. That unit was eventually compensated in 2021. The Royal Australian Air Force reported on December 9, 2020, that 11 EA-18G Growlers and 24 FA-18F Super Hornets had been grounded following an incident in which the crew of an RAAF FA-18F had to eject on takeoff, which is still being investigated. Because the Hornet platform is the U.S. Navy's primary combat platform, it could be a costly expense to bear. In addition, the Navy is gradually introducing the naval version of the F-35 Lightning. We'll have to wait and see how things turn out. A direct counterpart in the service of opposing air forces is hard to pin down, although radar jamming equipped versions of the Russian Air Force's MiG-31 and the People's Liberation Army Air Force's J-16D variant may be posited as direct challenges. It's unknown how potent these systems are, but the J-16D has been of particular interest as it's a variant of the Russian Su-27 flanker platform. Not only is it fast, but it is also highly maneuverable, therefore potentially posing a high degree of threat to vulnerable U.S. assets. The Growler looks to set to continue in service for a very, very long time, even as the 4th-generation airframe that it's based on is completely phased out. Future variants of the plane, however, may be drones instead, remotely piloted and part of a trend that's moving towards it. Any replacement for the Growler would probably have to exceed its characteristics and performance, while also being capable beyond anything conceivable right now. Its combat history is short and brief, but that only means that there are yet more battle spaces for it to conquer. YouTube is now recommending some of our other videos to watch. Before you head on over to them though, be sure to leave your thoughts about the XB70. We'll try to reach as many of you as possible.